dawn that waited patiently for me stood quiet by the dying sea. Its colors held a muted glow, a promise soft and slow. The waves curled gently at my feet, a rhythm calm and incomplete. And though my heart was far from home, the sky began to shift. A slow forgiving lift. The dawn that waited patiently held space for who I'd be. It didn't rush my healing pace, it only offered grace. The dawn that waited patiently allowed my clarity, and let the night release its hold on memories uncontrolled. I watched the shoreline breathe again, a whisper hidden in the wind. The clouds pulled back like tired eyes, revealing subtle skies. My thoughts, once heavy, spread apart like softened pieces of my heart. And though the ache still lingered near, it felt less sincere. The early light became a soft, unspoken flame. The dawn that waited patiently returned my sense of me. It held the tears that still remained, but didn't call them pain. The dawn that waited patiently spoke in serenity. It traced the outlines of my past, but let them fade at last. Maybe dawn arrives in quiet, gentle dives, not blazing bright, but slow and true, to show what we outgrew. The dawn that waited patiently set pieces of me free. It gave me room to breathe anew in shades of faded blue. The dawn that waited patiently restored my dignity. And though the night may call again, I'll rise from where I've been. The morning wakes with silent plea for dawn that waits for me. The breath that held me through the night was faint, but kept my soul upright. It trembled in the quiet air, yet anchored my despair. The room was dim, the shadows long, a whisper shaping fragile song. Each moment moved with gentle strain, a soft but steady pain. But something in the dark preserved a tiny spark. The breath that held me through the night held on with fragile might. It didn't chase the fears away, but kept them all at bay. The breath that held me through the night became my flickering light, a quiet strength beneath the ache that didn't let me break. The moon leaned low upon the floor, a silver path from door to door. It touched the corners of my mind where lost things lay behind. I felt the weight of every year collected in a single tear, yet still I breathe, though barely so, as moments ebbed in slow. The stillness poured its hue into the thoughts I knew. The breath that held me through the night outlasted every fright. tip the scale. And maybe breathing small is still a way to call, a quiet plea to stay alive, a whisper to survive. The breath that held me through the night guided me toward light. It kept my weary chest from stone and made the dark my own. The breath that held me through the night still lingers in my side, a memory of fragile grace in night's consuming space. And now the dawn holds me upright from breath that saved the night. The hours that refused to leave last night held tightly to my fading light. They lingered in the corners deep where broken things still sleep. Their presence pressed against my skin like echoes breathing from within. And though I begged the dark to fade, the hours stayed unafraid. The time became a chain that links me to my pain. The hours that refused to leave left little room to breathe. They clung to every heavy thought, to everything I thought. The hours that refused to leave became the webs I weave, binding all my aching parts around my fragile heart. I trace the silence on the wall, the faintest shiver of a call, a memory that came undone of days I used to run. The minutes crept across the floor, then gathered near my bedroom door. They whispered truths I couldn't face, but knew I must embrace. The night revealed the cost of everything I lost. The hours that refused to leave allowed my heart to grieve. They forced the tears I'd locked away to finally find their way. The hours that refused to leave found pieces in the sea, reminding me of who I was before the quiet calls. And maybe time will teach the wounds too far to read, that hours stay until they show the things I need to know. The hours that refused to leave taught me how to believe in healing slow and undefined, and shadows left behind. The hours that refused to leave now rest beneath my sleep, a memory of darkest dawn that helped me carry on. Though the night may still deceive, some hours choose to leave. The dawn that didn't rush to come today, stood quiet in the muted gray. It hovered just beyond the sea as if it waited me. The sky was painted faint and thin, a fragile tone beneath my skin. And for a while the world stood still against my aching will. The morning breathed in slow, as if it somehow knew. The dawn that didn't rush to come held everything I've become. It gave me space to stay in pain without the need to feign. The dawn that didn't rush to come beat like a gentle drum, a patient pulse that softly grew to let me make it through. I watched the water touch the shore, a tender sway I can't ignore. The breeze that brushed against my face carried forgotten grace. My tired bones, my silent heart felt something like a brand new start. Not sharp, not bright, not bold or fast, just peace that learned to last. The early light revealed the wounds that time concealed. The dawn that didn't rush to come spoke where the night was numb. It let me rest, it let me breathe without the need to leave. The dawn that didn't rush to come sang quiet, soft and numb, yet somehow in its gentle way it promised I'd be okay. And maybe some new days arrive in quiet haze, not blazing gold but tender blue, so hearts can filter through. The dawn that didn't rush to come let healing overcome. It met my shadows where they stayed and touched the fears I made. The dawn that didn't rush to come now hums a steady hum, a rhythm slow, a whispered vow that I can handle now. And in its slow, unhurried sound, the dawn at last has come. The night that carried what I couldn't hold was quiet, tender, dark and cold. It brushed against my trembling hands and took my broken strands. I felt the heaviness I wore slip slowly toward the waiting floor, as if the air itself could bear the weight I placed there. The shadows bent to me in gentle sympathy. The night that carried what I couldn't held everything I wouldn't. The tears I forced myself to hide, the pain I kept inside. The night that carried what I couldn't knew all the words I shouldn't. It let me breathe in fragile form within its silent storm. bed was dim, a fading spark at every rim, but still it burned enough to show the pieces lost below. I reached to touch the empty space, but once I found your warm embrace, yet in the hollowness of air, the night just whispered care. It softened every sound that lived within my ground. The night that carried what I couldn't, held on when I just wouldn't. It wrapped around my aching chest and eased my restless rest. The night that carried what I couldn't, understood why I couldn't. It didn't ask me to be strong, it simply stayed along. Maybe nights are made for hearts that feel afraid to place their burdens in the dark and trust a quiet spark. The night that carried what I couldn't, showed me that I shouldn't try to hold the world too tight or drown alone each night. The night that carried what I couldn't, made space where sorrow rooted, and when the dawn began to rise, I felt new soft replies. The night still echoes faintly wooden. It carried what I couldn't. The hours that held my falling heart began when worlds fell apart. They gathered in the deepest blue and wrapped me through and through. The clock ticked slow, the air was thin, a fragile space beneath my skin. Yet in that trembling, aching place, I found a quiet grace. The stillness knew my name and didn't place the blame. The hours that held my falling heart cradled every part. They didn't heal the wounds inside, but stayed there as they cried. The hours that held my falling heart kept me from breaking apart. They hovered close with gentle light throughout a sleepless night. I whispered truths into the air in hopes someone would hear them there. The night replied with muted tone, a soft familiar moan, and though the pain still shook my chest, the hours urged me rest. A little breath, a little peace, a moment of release. The darkness softly spun a thread where I'd begun. The hours that held my fallen heart let everything restart. They caught the that held my falling heart became my counterpart. They stayed until the dawn returned and softened where I burned. The hours that held my falling heart will always be a part of how I learned to breathe again through all I lost back then. And so I thank the night's own art for holding my faint heart. Last light on my window pane fell slowly through the rain. It dripped across the silent glass as hours tried to pass. The world outside was washed in gray, a wilted echo of the day. And in that pale and dying glow, I felt the undertow. The night drew in so near. It swallowed all my fear. The last light on my window pane returned my quiet pain. It showed reflections I once knew when I was still with you. The last light on my window pane moved through me like a strain, a melody I couldn't sing of every shattered press my hand against the cold, the way I did when I was told that love can fade like fleeting sun when days no longer run. The raindrops tapped a muted beat, a rhythm soft but incomplete, and every drop that slid below revealed a hidden woe. The sky exhaled its sigh as tears began to fly. The last light on my window pane unraveled my terrain. It traced the lines beneath my eyes where truth and silence lies. The last light on my window pane made all my doubts remain. It danced along the silver rim where memories grow dim. Maybe fading light teaches the soul to write the words we never dared to speak when nights were far less weak. The last light on my window pane dissolved into the rain. It carried off my broken plea and left the rest to me. The last light on my window pane still haunts me like a stain, but in its dim and trembling fall I find myself in awe. The glow is gone, but still I cling. The last light on the pane. The night I learned to fall slowly held me like something holy. It wrapped around my shaking frame and whispered I'm the same. The darkness wasn't cruel or sharp, it hummed like a tender harp. And though my breath was barely there, it pushed me toward repair. helped me understand. The night I learned to fall slowly, took pieces that consoled me. It let me crumble in its sight without the need to fight. The night I learned to fall slowly, unwound the things that stole me. It let me fold into the floor and ask for nothing more. I felt the carpet meet my knees, a fragile bow into the breeze, to slip beneath my curtains thin and wandered through my sin. The trembling of my weary bones made music in the undertones, a broken hymn I tried to sing of every missing thing. The stillness moved with grace around my hollow place. The night I learned to fall slowly, held what was left of lonely. It caught the weight I used to drag like some unwritten flag. The night I learned to fall slowly, embrace the ache that stole me. It didn't ask me to be whole, just listen to my soul. And maybe falling slow is how the lost ones grow. They break in ways that show the ground where gentler truths are found. The night I learned to fall slowly, rebuilt the parts below me. It let me breathe a softer sound before I found my ground. The night I learned to fall slowly, still murmurs low and lowly, a memory of fragile peace where every tremble cease. The night still whispers quietly of when it carried me slowly. The soft echo left behind tonight moves slowly through the fading light. It lingered where the shadows fall across my bedroom wall. It hummed a quiet broken tune beneath the pale and distant moon. And as it brushed my tired skin, it pulled my sorrows in. The silence learned my name and held me just the same. The soft echo left behind returned what I couldn't find. It brought the pieces I once hid to where my heart forbid. The soft echo left behind rewound my fragile mind. It carried words I meant to speak, but kept for fear I'm weak. I traced the echo through the air, a faint reminder you were there. It drifted near my window frame and whispered like a flame. The night outside was cool and still, a gentle lake I couldn't kill. Yet in the quiet's trembling sound, a tender truth I found. The echo reached inside to places long denied. The soft echo left behind repeated what I signed, a vow love that came with cost. The soft echo left behind reshape what I designed. It let me feel without regret what I haven't felt yet. And maybe echoes stay so hearts don't drift away. They hold the sound of what we miss in shadows soft as this. The soft echo left behind unburdened my confined. It let me breathe the heavy truth I locked away in youth. The soft echo left behind still circles in my mind, a voice of everything once mine, returned in muted line. The night grows thin, but still I find the echo left behind.
Faint light underneath my door stretched quietly across the floor. It glowed between the cracks so thin and seeped beneath my skin. It didn't brighten up the room, just softened all the gloom. A fragile guiding muted thread that pulled me from my dread. The night grew still with grace around my fragile space. The faint light underneath my door revealed what I ignored. It showed the shadows in my chest that never found their rest. The faint light underneath my door became the metaphor of all the things that still survive when I can't feel alive. Against the quiet bed with tangled thoughts inside my head. The minutes moved without a sound, as if afraid to be found. The world outside was barely there, a distant hum of cold night air. Yet in the dimness of the floor I felt a little more. The stillness brushed my fears and caught my falling tears. The faint light underneath my door pulled gently at my core. It let me see what pain concealed and what has never healed. The faint light underneath my door held me like something pure, a small reminder in the night that even small things are light, and maybe hope arrives in slivers of our lives, not blazing bright but soft and warm, enough to calm the storm. The faint light underneath my door meant more than times before. It wrapped my sorrow in its glow and told me it could go. The faint light underneath my door now lives forevermore, a symbol of the quiet grace that holds my hidden space. The dawn will rise, the night will pour beyond my quiet door. Quiet door.
that sat beside my fears was softer than the tears. It folded gently at my side where all my truths reside. The window rattled in the cold, yet still the darkness gently told that I could breathe inside the pain and not be split again. The quiet leaned on me in calm solidity. The night that sat beside my fears held when no one hears. It gathered every trembling thread I kept inside my head. The night that sat beside my fears softened all those years where I pretended to be strong while breaking all along. I traced the shadows on the floor that stretched toward the door. Their shapes were moving slow and thin like echoes wearing skin. The air was heavy, cold and tight, yet strangely felt polite, as if the darkness understood more than daylight could. The stillness took its claim by whispering my name. The night that sat beside my fears absorbed my hidden tears. It held the fractures I concealed that daylight never healed. The night that sat beside my fears eased what reappears when memories tear me from sleep and drag my heart too deep. That sat beside my fears stayed through shifting gears. It didn't fix the aching core, but broke the weight I bore. The night that sat beside my fears remains through future years, a witness to the silent parts inside my fragile heart. And I still feel it near. The night that held my feet.
The space between my breath and breaking was small but quietly aching. It hovered like a trembling line between collapse and fine. The lamp above my bedside glow showed shadows only I could know. They stretched like hands across the wall to catch me as I'd fall. The air grew still and deep, as if it learned to weep. The space between my breath and breaking held every fear I'm taking. A pause before the final drop that begged my heart to stop. The space between my breath and breaking was mercy in the making. A fragile moment pulled so thin where truths begin within. I tried to speak but words were few. The night had taken cue.
It echoed softly through my ribs like long forgotten fibs. I touched the blanket near my knees, a gesture made to seek some ease. And though it shook beneath my hand, it helped me understand. The silence held its ground inside my soft surround. The space between my breath and breaking held fragments I was faking. It let me feel the weight I'd stored, the grief I once ignored. The space between my breath and breaking stopped everything from quaking, just long enough for me to see what hurt was meant to be. And maybe hearts survive by pausing to revive in moments fragile, tight and thin, where breaking can begin. The space between my breath and breaking is where I found awakening. It let me crumble slow and small without a final fall. The space between my breath and breaking kept all my sorrow waking, until I learned to rise again from what I held back then. And still that space remains between my breath and pains. The room that listened when I couldn't speak stayed quiet, soft and weak. It wrapped its stillness around my chest and offered wordless rest. The walls were worn with muted scars from nights beneath the stars, where I had fallen to the floor and whispered nothing more. The silence leaned so near, it learned my every fear. The room that listened when I couldn't speak protected me for weeks. It heard the thoughts I tried to hide, the storms I kept inside. The room that listened when I couldn't speak made trembling feel less bleak. It held the secrets tears confess in moments of distress. I traced the dust along the sill while fighting to be still. The window hummed a distant tune from winds that passed the moon. The air was heavy with my doubt, yet somehow reached me out. And though I didn't form a sound, my truth was still unbound. The room inhaled my ache and didn't let me break. The room that listened when I couldn't speak stayed through my fragile week. It cushioned every brittle thought the daylight never caught. The room that listened when I couldn't speak made loneliness unique, a place where hurting softly grew but didn't tear me through. And maybe hearts require a quiet to inspire, a space where breaking isn't wrong but part of growing strong. The room that listened when I couldn't speak heard all my inner leak. It stayed until the dawn grew clear and held me through the fear. The room that listened when I couldn't speak still holds my memories weak. A sanctuary stitched in time of nights I couldn't climb. And in that room I leave a trace of what I couldn't face. The places my heart hid from morning were silent without warning. They curled beneath the fading night, avoiding every light. They lingered in the deepest blue, where whispers still felt true. A fragile corner carved in time, where shadows learned to rhyme. The dawn approached too fast for wounds that couldn't last. The places my heart hid from morning held all my silent mourning. They kept the pieces I let fall before I knew them all. The places my heart hid from morning heard every quiet warning. The rising sunlight drags the truth out from the fear of you. Trace the cracks along the wall where memories learn to crawl. They move like dust in gentle sway across the waking gray. The lamp was nearly losing glow, yet still it seemed to show the parts of me I couldn't face in any other space. The darkness held my hand to help me understand. The places my heart hid from morning held secrets worth adorning. They softened pain that burned too bright in unforgiving light. The places my heart hid from morning were fragile but not scorning. They let me breathe without a cost for every piece I lost. Maybe hearts retreat where quiet feels complete, to gather strength before they rise against the brighter sky. The places my heart hid from morning stopped all the disheartening. They let me rest in muted hue before the day broke through. The places my heart hid from morning still echo without warning, a gentle refuge in the night before I face the light. And still they softly call the places guarding all. Breath I borrowed from the dark was quiet like a spark. It settled deep within my chest and urged my thoughts to rest. The window hummed a low refrain of drifting midnight rain, and in that rapping tender sound my trembling softened down. The stillness shaped a tune beneath the silver moon. The breath I borrowed from the dark rebuilt my fading mark. It carried all
truths I had ignored, the breath I borrowed from the dark. Let healing even start. It didn't mend the ache inside, but helped my heart abide. I leaned against the evening air and felt a subtle prayer, a whisper woven from the night that everything's alright. My hands were cold from hidden fear, yet somehow I drew near to something gentle, soft and kind that loosened up my mind. The darkness held its grace around my fragile space. The breath I borrowed from the dark lifted my inner mark. It smoothed the ridges of my pain in soothing midnight rain. The breath I borrowed from the dark relit my dwindling spark and gave me space to gently be away from misery. And maybe hearts repair when wrapped in midnight air, where silence holds us in its sway, till we find a way. The breath I borrowed from the dark restored my missing spark. It let me gather tender strength across the night's full length. The breath I borrowed from the dark still whispers through the stark, a memory that guides me slow where softer sorrows go. And as the daylight grows, the borrowed breath still glows. Quiet that taught my heart to grieve arrived on a lonely. It seeped into my tired bones between unspoken tones. The night hung heavy on my chest, yet somehow felt like rest. It wrapped around my hurting mind and whispered, take your time. The silence touched my pain like slow forgiving rain. The quiet that taught my heart to grieve did not ask me to leave. It let me tremble where I knelt and feel what I had felt. The quiet that taught my heart to grieve showed tears I once perceived as signs of weakness, born of fear, were proof that I was here. I stared into the muted glow of shadows bending low. They traced the outline of my doubt and slowly drew it out. The window's breath was cold and thin, but soothed my trembling skin. And in the hush that filled the room, I learned to face my gloom. The darkness stayed so near, it steadied every fear. The quiet that taught my heart to grieve gave me the chance to breathe. It took the weight I long denied and placed it at my side. The quiet that taught my heart to grieve made sorrow less naive. It showed me that the things I keep can finally learn to weep. And grief becomes a
the broken place, the quiet that taught my heart to grieve. Help me at last believe that healing isn't clean or clear, but found in moments near. The quiet that taught my heart to grieve still shapes the way I leave my tears upon the midnight air when life becomes too bare. And still I softly breathe in quiet meant to grieve.
The night that wrote my silence down moved gently through the town. Its whispers brushed against my face in slow, forgiving grace. The lamp beside my bed was low, a dying ember's final glow. And through the shadows on the floor, my truth began to pour. The stillness held its breath to listen to my depth. The night that wrote my silence down unfolded every frown and ink, the pain I stored so tight across the fading light. The night that wrote my silence down did not let me drown. It caught the words I couldn't speak in moments soft and weak. The air was cold against my skin, yet warm somewhere within. It carried memories I hid of things I never did. I heard the wind outside my door repeat the thoughts I tried to store, and in the hush that wrapped around, my fears became unbound. The darkness turned the page of all my buried age. The night that wrote my silence down dissolved my inner crown. It took the weight from wounded parts and placed it near my heart. The night that wrote my silence down held shadows from my town. It let me breathe what broke in me and feel my honesty. And maybe silence speaks in nights that last for weeks, where nothing moves and nothing breaks, but everything awakes. The night that wrote my silence down removed my hidden gown. It let the quiet carry me through waking memory. The night that wrote my silence down still keeps my soft renown, a record of the hurt I saved and wounds I never braved. And in that night I found a place where truth was bound.
The shadow that stayed when light was gone remained until the dawn. It lingered on my shaking knees like sympathetic breeze. It grew beside my quiet form, a comfort through the storm. And though the world outside was bleak, it didn't feel so weak. The shadow knew my ways from all my darker days. The shadow that stayed when light was gone held me carry on. It held the sorrow in my chest when I could find no rest. The shadow that stayed when light was gone softened every yawn of nights too long, too deep, too cold for hearts already old. I reached to touch the silent floor where shapes bent evermore. They stretched across the wooden grain like silhouettes of pain. Yet even in that silent shape I found a subtle escape, a warmth that grew without a word from things I never heard. The quiet stayed with me in calmest company. The shadow that stayed when light was gone moved gently on and on. It traced the outline of my doubt and slowly drew it out. The shadow that stayed when light was gone held wounds that lingered long. It didn't mend my broken seam, but eased my fragile dream. Maybe shadows stay when brightness fades away, to hold the hearts that can't be seen, and cold between the mean. The shadow that stayed when light was gone became my faintest dawn. It taught me how to stand again without denying pain. The shadow that stayed when light was gone still follows on and on. A friend I never meant to meet in darkness deep and sweet. And though the sun comes on, the shadow lingers strong. The breath the night returned to me was fragile as could be. It slipped between my trembling hands like soft unspoken plans. I felt it settle on my chest, a hesitant request to let the weight I'd carried along no longer make me wrong. The darkness took its time to lift me from my climb. The breath and night returned to me was tender, wild and free. It wrapped my aches in quiet flow and whispered, let it go. The breath and night returned to me, rebuilt me steadily. It didn't heal me in a rush, but formed a gentle hush. I leaned into the fading light that dimmed across the night. It cast its glow upon the floor before it reached my door. And in that soft and golden sway, my fears began to stray. I breathed again in smaller pace and calmer, safer space. The stillness read my ache just what to take. The breath the night returned to me was soft like memory. It brushed the tension in my spine and said the pain is mine. The breath the night returned to me brought back what used to be, a piece of courage lost in years beneath unspoken fears. And maybe nights restore what days can't hold no more. They give us space to fall apart and gather up the heart. The breath of night returned to me, let my heart finally see that breaking slow is not a sin, but where new truths begin. The breath of night returned to me, stays deep within the free, a rhythm of the gentle night that carried me through fright, and still I breathe that plea. The night returned to me.
The window where my heart stayed awake held shadows I couldn't shake. The moonlight slipped across my bed and traced the thoughts inside my head. It lingered on my trembling hands, as if it somehow understands that I have nights I can't outrun, and truths that weigh a ton. The silence wrapped around like comfort from the ground. The window where my heart stayed awake saw every quiet ache. It watched me breathe in shallow lines through half-forgotten signs. The window where my heart stayed awake held all that I could break. It kept the night from sinking in when I was wearing thin. Pressed my palm against the glass and watched the empty hours pass. The city hummed in muted glow, a world I barely know. The cars moved slow, the streets were bare, a sleepy softness filled the air, and in that gentle drifting light I felt myself ignite. The stillness touched my chest and urged my mind to rest. The window where my heart stayed awake knew what I couldn't take. It saw the tears I didn't shed, the words I left unsaid. The window where my heart stayed awake became my quiet lake, reflecting things I tried to hide from daylight's harsher side. And maybe hearts don't sleep because their wounds run deep, and windows learn to be the friend who listens without end. The window where my heart stayed awake gave back what night could make, a moment soft, a fading blue that let me start anew. The window where my heart stayed awake still holds my heartbreak, a place where shadows gently roam but somehow feel like home. And when the morning starts to break, the window stays awake.